Hey guys, Brian here for APOCALPICS. This is our initial video. Calling it APOCALPICS because really, well, when I say we, it's really just me. But I have a wife and she may chip in at some point, potentially. We're calling it APOCALPICS because I'm really just going to be talking about movies that I don't particularly like. Movies which upset me or distressed me in some way, frustrated me, or really made me feel that it wasn't worth the money having gone to the cinema to see them. Particularly given the poor quality seating we have in the cinemas where I live, it's quite uncomfortable after a while, particularly if you're seeing a bad film. So in general, we're just going to be talking about movies that I don't really like. I do like a lot of movies, but I tend to enjoy talking about movies that I don't like a little bit more because they're funner to pick to pieces. So from that perspective, it's more agreeable for all concerned. So just to start the side off, I'm going with the 5 worst films I saw in 2009, and that is to say the 5 worst films that I saw which were released in 2009, and I've been thinking about this for at least 10 to 15 minutes, so obviously we're going for a pretty solid analysis here. So to start at number 5, I'm going to say Terminator Salvation was a really disappointing movie for me, being a really big fan of the franchise. Obviously, the first 2 movies were pretty good. The second movie is universally regarded as one of the greatest action movies of all time, if not the greatest action movie of all time. A lot of people didn't like the third movie as much. I still enjoyed it. I thought it was a good sort of popcorn flick, you know. And since the end of the third one, I've really been looking forward to the fourth one. Looking at the fourth one, and this is why I have it at the 5th worst, because in some ways it wasn't that bad. But for me, it was just really, really boring. Like nothing. It's not even that nothing happens, but it just has a really depressing, boring feel to it. That you're just bored. I mean, nothing really happens throughout the whole thing, and it just feels really tired and really strange. And Christian Bale seemed like a really good cast for me as John Connor. I thought that seemed like a good idea. But it was just a really, really dull performance, and there just wasn't much to captivate the attention. That being said, I think the film could have been a lot better if they'd probably cut maybe 20, 30 minutes out of it. I think it pushed up around 2 hours or thereabouts, and I think that was just too long. I mean, that being said, the film could still be salvaged by a good 5th movie, which probably won't happen now anyway. But if it did, you might be able to view that one more favourably. But in general, I'm going to put that to number 5 purely from the fact that I was so disappointed with it, as were a lot of other people. Especially from the perspective that with Terminator movies, you wait such a long time between installments. You know, it's like 84, then 91, then 2003, then 2009. So it's many years in between. So when it comes along, you're really expecting it to be good. So for that reason, if nothing else, I'm whacking that one in at number 5. At number 4, I'm going to bring up the Ugly Truth. I keep wanting to call it The Awful Truth, probably because of that Michael Moore TV series. I saw it at the movies with my wife, and it was okay. But for me, the humour in it was really, really basic, and it had that feel of almost like the pilot of a pretty shoddy sitcom, you know, where there's like these pauses throughout the thing where you're supposed to laugh. And I just really didn't think it was that funny. And what really irritated me about it is the fact that other people did think it was funny. When I was in the cinema, people were just laughing, and I'm thinking, well, what the fuck are you laughing at? This isn't funny. Oh, she's fallen in a tree, and you can see her underpants, and oh my god, it's so fucking amusing, isn't it? So that type of sort of forced humour just really irritates me. For me, it's really interesting to look at the movies, the romantic comedies and comedies in general, but certainly romantic comedies made over the last decade or so, just to see the general decline to this sort of mass-produced shit that we're force-fed all year at the moment. And any of the guys out there who are married or have girlfriends are constantly getting dragged along to these fucking things and have to sit through them, and it's just becoming more and more painful to the extent where it's really hard to get through the film and get to the end of it without having a major fight with the girl that you've gone to it with, you know, because she gets pissed off because you're grunting and moaning and so forth throughout the whole production, and they find it irritating. But as I say, the Awful Truth I would certainly have to put in at number 4. as one of the worst movies I've seen this year. The chemistry between the two leads was fine, but I mean, as I say, it just kind of felt like a bad sitcom to me. Not particularly funny, extremely predictable plot. And for me, it sort of felt like, just with the way they shot the film, that they were trying to emulate sort of like a classic romantic comedy from the 1950s or 1960s, something a la, like, like Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, or, one of those really old sort of classic comedies, which weren't necessarily particularly funny anyway. But it kind of felt to me like they were trying to set up, like, a sort of a classic kind of Cary Grant-esque character to this guy. I mean, even though he's a vulgar character. I've forgotten his name, the dude from 300. 300 was awesome. But that movie sucked. This movie sucked, rather. But, for me, it was just not funny, and it just wasn't particularly good. Moving along to number 3, looking at another romantic comedy, I would have to say Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. I'm not a huge fan of Jennifer Garner. I don't necessarily have anything against her, but as yet I haven't seen her in anything which I particularly enjoyed. That's not really my problem with the film. I generally have a dislike for anything with Matthew McConaughey in it, and I don't really know why. I guess for the same reason I didn't like The Awful Truth. He just has a really bland quality to me, which just isn't particularly interesting or enticing. And he just tends to kill any project that he comes along to. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I enjoyed Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas was okay in it. I thought he was amusing enough, but, I mean, for me, the movie was probably okay for about 30, 40 minutes thereabouts, but it just really dragged on after that. Fairly predictable, no real clear resolutions which we're really interested in, and for me, McConaughey doesn't really build up any sort of character that you can really care about what happens to him by the end of it. You just really want the thing to end so you can get out of there. I'm not going to go into it too much because, in all honesty, I saw it 6 months ago and I can't remember what the fuck it was really about anyway. I mean, he has some sort of experience and goes through all his old relationships and tries to learn from it. It's been done so many times, and it's been done a lot better in other films. Even something like The Family Man was probably better. It's a different type of film, but a similar sort of story with better actors in it. But anyway,